Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Kai, and today I have for you another set of nails for my vacation. I am currently away enjoying my time in Europe, but I wanted to share with you all how I made this fun sort of ocean lemon combination of a summer design. I thought it would be perfect for my time in the Mediterranean. I'll show you step by step how I made each nail, including some hand-painted designs and 3D sculpting. But thank you so much for checking out my video. Please consider subscribing if you are not already, and let's look at the design. Okay, so really quickly, I just wanted to go over some of my inspirations for this design and kind of like my basic planning sheet. I did not have time before I left to really do like the full design, but I did sketch out something just so I had a direction. The biggest inspiration was definitely this set here by Amy's Clients. I love her work. I was using her Ombré palette, and so I thought it would be appropriate to borrow some elements from her design. I also just really liked the vibes of these ocean nails from Frisky Nails, particularly the idea of like a French tip shell design. Over here, I thought I was going to use one of these like gold outlined seashells, but I end up not doing that. I do think it's a cute design though. I borrowed the blue seashell look and this like middle finger here from Arissa Chu. Love her work. I think she makes the cutest nails. And then for the like sparkly nail with the trail of shells and pearls and whatnot, I really took inspiration from, I think it's Nabby Nails by Tep. I think that's how you say it. They're all different Instagram artists that I follow that I just think have really amazing work, and so I kind of pulled those together into this ocean themed design that combines like sea with a more like cutesy coquette look with the lemons, because I thought that would be super appropriate for Italy for the first leg of my journey. So yeah, this is what I started with. And as you'll see by the end, I do stick pretty faithfully to the design with some minor changes throughout. Sorry, by the way, for the audio here. I am currently in my last hotel of this trip, but it's been almost 3 weeks since I've uploaded my last video, and I really wanted to try to get this one edited on my iPad and out to you all, so the audio will hopefully go back to better quality right after this clip. Alright, so now that we've looked at the overall design plan, let's look at the supplies. You will want a syrup nudie pink gel. This is nudie pink from Doughy. You also want some sort of syrup or semi-transparent blue gel. This is from the Bunny Chew collection, Yogurt No Korea. You'll want a blue magnetic gel. This one is from the new Divok Chilling collection, or it was new at the time at least. You'll also want some sort of gold magnetic gel, so this is Appraise Astral Set Wheel of Fortune. I'm not sure of a good alternative for this one. This is the Moon Gel from Doughy, but it's basically a pearlescent special effect gel. And then you'll want a white ink. This one is also from Doughy. It's their Marbly ink. You do need to shake it well before using, but any white ink will do. And then you'll want some sort of 3D sculpting clays. I have the Chris clays. These are honestly some of my favorite to sculpt with, and I am an affiliate with her if you'd like to save some money. You'll want some sort of thick top coat. I love the Yoga Zombie top, just to seal in the 3D elements and the charms. And then if you have blooming gel, you can use it, but I also find that a base gel works well, so this is the new Liua Zero base. And then of course, I had to pull out my Crazy Top Thick for the 3D swirls. And last but not least, you'll want some sort of thicker white painting gel. So this is the D-Gel white painting gel from the Ginny collaboration. I also grabbed my MPA art palette because it is slightly thinner, which means it's a little bit better for blending and creating more realistic looks. And And then you'll want some really small brushes for the hand painted details. I love both of these from Sweetie Nail Supply and Diami. And then I am trying my YHH Ombre palette for this design. This is relatively new, I got it from Amy's clients. For that ombre, I'm going to be using the mushroom sponges from Diami just because I like how they're rounded already and they'll make for a good aura look. I brought out some ocean themed charms, and with that we are ready to go. Obviously, if you are going to recreate this, use whatever supplies that you might have already. These are just what I pulled out, and I do have some discount codes if you'd like to support me in the description. Alright, so let's start with the base colors. So first things first, I'm laying down a few layers of the Doughy Nudie Pink. I wanted just kind of like a neutral base to work off of for some of the designs. However, I do think this one was maybe slightly too pink for the shell look I was going for this nail here. So in hindsight, I would have used maybe more of like a tan nude for this design. I did not have time to redo it though, so I went ahead and painted on my 3 layers, curing in between, and then I wiped off the tacky layer to prepare for our ombre. This is my first time really using the YHH Ombre palette. I love Amy's clients' designs. She does amazing blends, and so I wanted to see what this was all about. I just tapped some on my sponge, getting the excess off on a palette, and then went in with thin layers. I did about 3 layers, just concentrating this on the end each time, and I think it came out really nicely. I like how it blended. Up close, there is just like a teeny tiny bit of texture, but otherwise it looked really nice. For the pinky finger, I'm painting on 2 layers of that same blue color from Yogurt Gel Korea, and this is just going to be the base of the little scalloped French tip, so I just leave it there, and then I go in with only 1 layer on the middle finger before adding on top of that, once curing, a layer of the Divock Chilling Collection. I picked number 52 because it was a gorgeous like sea green color with a little bit of that gold glitter in it. All of the Chilling Collection magnetic gels have that gold shift, which I really enjoy. I'm just using a bar magnet to bring all of that pigment to the surface, and then once I have all of it up on the surface, I'm using a round rod magnet and just circling the perimeter of the nail to create that spotlight chasing effect. You do want to cure this really quickly in order to preserve that design. Now onto the ring finger, I'm using that same nudie pink as the base for a 3D lemon nail. Just laying down, I think I do 3 layers on this one as well. I do really like the doughy polishes, though I will say they are on the more sheer side, so you do need more layers to get really vibrant color payoff, but I think the formula is amazing and just so smooth. So here I'm going in with a little bit of the yellow from the YHH, and I did mix it with the white. I wanted to see if you could get like a custom color, and you absolutely can. This is just a glass palette with a silicone applicator, and then I used a new mushroom sponge and just dabbed it in the center to create kind of like an aura effect. The color at first was a little too orangey for me, mixing that yellow with the pink background, so I did go back in, add a little bit more white, and that made sort of like the perfect bright lemon color. This is probably layer 2 or 3 at this point of the ombre, curing in between. So far, I'm really happy with this palette. I think that because you can mix the colors together, it creates a lot of options for versatility. Here, I'm just trying to find the best color match for that polish we were using earlier, so I can do a little ombre from color to clear on the pinky finger. This color was pretty close, although it did come out a little bit more vibrant, but I don't know, I kind of like when you have a sort of like one-toned monochrome nail set that has different shades of the same color. So I'm just dabbing off that excess here. Now, I personally work in thin layers, curing in between to build up color. I know that some people who are really good at ombres with this technique can do it all in 1 layer, but that's just not where I'm at yet. I do want to experiment, so I do probably about 3 layers of this color. Again, curing in between each layer, and I'm making sure to concentrate most of it at the cuticle. Now, I did learn if you wipe away the tacky layer on top, that it will wipe away the pigment, so I would not recommend cleansing this layer and instead just sealing it in at the end with your top coat. But once I was happy with my ombre, I went in with that moon gel and just did a little sort of like wave design across the surface of the nail. I wanted this to look like seafoam, and I think it mimicked it perfectly. That moon gel is so cool, it separates on its own. And now we're on to the next hand. So for the left thumb, I'm going back in with that nudie pink, and I'm doing 3 layers once more because this is also going to be an ombre nail, curing in between each layer. And this time I'm going to ombre on that same blue color from earlier that we used for the last pinky nail, this time just on top of that nude color. I'm being really patient here and again working in layers just because that's what I prefer, but I think you can go in with more pigment. One thing to note is if you are going to ombre over a pre-existing color instead of just clear, you might need to add a little bit more white if you're working with those thin layers. So for example here, I just added a tiny bit more white and it just amped up the opacity of that color so that I got a really nice bright blue shade by the time I was done with my 3 layers. And I'm just using kind of like the clean parts of the sponge to blend out those edges even more. Side note, I'm really loving these glass palettes that I got just off of Temu or AliExpress. They just clean up so well and they reduce the amount of waste I'm creating when doing nails. For the pointer, I'm going to do another shell design, so I'm painting on 2 layers of that Bunny Chew color from Yogurt Gel Korea. We will be revisiting this nail a little bit later. For the middle and ring finger, I accidentally mislabeled them during editing. It's actually the ring finger that gets 2 layers of that blue color. And then for the middle finger, I'm going in with another 3 layers of that nudie pink from Doughy. I just didn't notice when I was editing, and I'm trying to edit this all on my iPad during traveling. It's been quite the challenge, to be honest, and I just couldn't go back and change the text. But our pinky finger will also have that Chilling Collection polish on top, so I'm putting down 1 layer of the Bunny Chew color, going in with a pretty thick layer of the Divock gel, and then I'm using the round magnet to do just like the velvet look where all of the particles are concentrated in the surface and then curing that, which actually means our base colors are finished. So let's move on to the painted details. Going back to that pointer finger, the shell design, I'm going in with a fresh layer of that blue color, and I'm not going to cure this. Instead, I'm going to take a liner brush and add to my palette all of the colors that I will want to blend together for the shell look. I'm going in with a syrup white, that same magnetic gel from the pinky finger, a cream white, this is the Vanta white from Divock. It's super nice and pigmented, and I'm just going to pick up some of each color, sort of messily painting it in that uncured gel in an arch shape across the surface of the nail, alternating the different polishes. And because you're working on wet polish, these will kind of blend together. If they aren't blending together enough for your liking, you can go in and just kind of like manually mix those colors a little bit more, which is what I'm doing here. Once that's done, since this is a pretty thick layer, I'm going to flip it over, let that polish self-level towards the apex of the nail just a little bit, and then I'm going to flip it back over, take my liner brush, clean it off, and then drag it through the polish at an angle towards the cuticle area of the nail. This just creates those really pretty ridges, those scallops that make for really realistic looking shells. And I love how easy this technique is, yet it has such stunning results. Similarly, I'm going to do the same with the thumbnail on the other hand. This time I'm pulling together more of like tan gold colors to create more of a realistic looking shell. Because I am going to use that painting gel, it's too thick to really blend the way I want it to, so I'm just thinning it out with a little bit of base gel. To create even more variance, I'm taking half of that polish, mixing in a little bit of white, and then I'm going to go in with that same base gel all over the surface of the nail. In my opinion, this works just as well as blooming gel, but if you have blooming gel, you could use that instead. but I'm going to follow the same steps, just painting on those different colors in arches over the surface of the nail, and then drag that brush through towards the cuticle. Now when I do this technique, I don't make a line right in the center. I actually put the first 2 lines off center because I want my 3D gel to be centered. So you kind of think of these lines as the outline for where you want your 3D gel, at least the way that I like to do the shell design. Once I have my ridges placed though, I'm just going to magnetize that magnetic gel just to add a little extra sparkle, a little subtle extra something. And then the pinky finger is that sort of like seafoam look inspired by Arisa Chu. So I'm just going in with a milky white, amping up the opacity just slightly with a pure white gel. And then I'm painting on sort of like organic circle shapes over the surface of that cured cat eye gel. I actually really ended up liking how this looked, how much that slight sparkle from the cat eye gel added some depth. To add even more depth, I don't cure this layer of polish. Instead, I go in with the straight white cream gel and I'm just kind of like blending it in over some of the areas of the seafoam just to amp it up a little bit and create even more of like a watery, liquidy effect. And overall, I actually really like this nail, even though it is quite simple. I originally went into this whole set wanting to do something quite simple, use like some nail stickers, and I'm sure you can tell that it quickly got out of control, but that's okay. I'm now going in with that white ink, and I wanted to create like a gingham sort of like check pattern on the ring finger. Again, I'm trying to tie in like the cutesy, coquette, lemony look with the ocean theme. So I'm just going in with that ink to create some stripes. And then over that, I'm using the white painting gel from D-Gel just to add some extra lines for a little bit more variation, to add some interest to this relatively simple nail. I give that a full cure and then move on to painting the middle finger design. Now, I don't know what to call this, but it's where you have the negative space in 2 circles on the nail. I really, really like how this looks. I think in hindsight, it looks a little bit better on longer nails where you can really elongate those negative space ovals and make them look really elegant. They looked okay here. It didn't come out exactly as I would have liked, I think, but overall I am happy with the end results. So yeah, I'm just going in with a custom mixed color from my MPA art palette and just painting on that design, giving it a full cure, then going in with that painting gel again and my super teeny tiny long liner brush from Diami. My Diami liner brushes are definitely the thinnest that I own. I really, really like them for super fine details. Here I'm using the short liner brush to add those hand-painted scallops. Now I thought this part of the design was going to be the easiest. Oh boy, was I wrong. Those scallops definitely gave me a headache. But going back to the ring finger, I'm using that same white painting gel and just outlining where I want my lemon to be. I guess this would be like the pith, the white part between the rind and the flesh of the lemon. And I'm just going in and adding lines towards the center of the nail to create these segments of the lemon. I start by dividing it into fourths, bringing all of those lines right to the center and then rounding out that center portion. With this sort of lemon design, you want all of your corners to be kind of rounded. That makes it look really realistic. But from there, I'm adding in more segments. Some of these lines though, I'm not taking all the way out to the edge, and some of them I'm actually not even bringing all the way into the center. Also, the segments I'm making various widths. It's not all completely even. I just think this makes it look a little bit more organic, and I really like the effect it gives. Once I have all of my lines placed, I'm just again rounding out those corners, making everything look nice and smooth. This is all with that white painting gel. Once I'm happy with how it looks, I'll give it a full cure before moving on to the next steps, which is adding the rind. This is just that same color that I used for the middle finger, so I'm just painting it on the cuticle edge, and now you have a really cute little painted lemon. For the pointer finger, I wanted to do a little scalloped French tip, so I'm going in with that painting gel just to outline the shape, and then I will cover that with the Divock Vanta White. I did find that the painting gel was just a little bit too thick to get a really nice smooth finish on that French, so I paint on the shape as a guideline, cure it, and then top that with that Vanta White. That just made a really nice smooth French. And then after curing, I went in with a liner brush and added the scallops, which once again were the bane of my existence. I don't know why these were so hard. I think I might have had a green tea before painting, so maybe it was the caffeine, or maybe it was because it was like 4 in the morning on the day of my flight out of the country, and I was absolutely in a mad dash to finish these nails. Honestly, I can't even believe I did finish them in time. Hence why I am editing while on vacation. This trip in a lot of ways has really forced me to take some me time, something that I definitely was not focusing on over the last year with doing both content and trying to work my full-time job. So I am super grateful for this vacation. It's been absolutely wonderful. So happy to have this opportunity. Tim, my boyfriend, his family is just so lovely for inviting me along, and it's just been amazing. I will try to get a vlog up at some point on my second channel. I will also do a vlog here that is focused on the longevity of these press-ons and how they wore. But now we're on to the fun part, my favorite 3D nail art. I'm going in with those Crisp clays, and I'm just mixing that white and yellow to create the perfect bright lemony shade. These clays are really easy to mix because they are more of a clay consistency, and I just went ahead and sculpted directly on the thumbnail. If you want to shape with a brush, you can use just a tiny bit of isopropyl alcohol to wet it to keep it from sticking. And that's honestly my preferred method. I like using my fingers, always gloved. Make sure that you're always wearing gloves if you're touching uncured gel. A nice flat brush wet with some alcohol, and then if I need two silicone tools, Croatia sells some really nice small tipped silicone tools. I actually use them for the lemon blossom, so I start by rolling out a little bit of the white to try to create 5 equal sections. I made them a little bit too big to start, so I redo that process, rolling out a little log and then dividing it into the 5 sections. I'm working one petal at a time using the silicone tool, wet with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol to just shape each petal and then flash cure them. I start with the 2 bottom petals and then the 1 top petal just to make sure I have room for all of them, and then go in and fill in the sides. Again, flash cure between each one. I do apologize, I was pretty tired at this point and not paying well enough attention to if I was in frame or not, so unfortunately I did lose quite a bit of the flower footage, but I think that's okay because this video is super long already anyway. For the leaves, I was lucky to have a green color already mixed. I think it was from my Japanese cafe nails where I did a melon bread, but anyway, I just used it to create 2 leaves. Same process as the flower petals really, just going in with a mix of the silicone tools and that flat brush with some isopropyl alcohol. Again, I just love how easy these clays are to work with. I personally bought the classic collection myself. This was before I became an affiliate, and actually I'm super excited for Croatia because she has her first gel polish collection that dropped Sunday, so by the time you're watching this, it should be out. Definitely check it out on her website. It is bringing all of the luxuriousness of Korean gel polishes to a Canadian brand, which I absolutely love. The packaging is to die for, so cute, and the magnetic gels are unique in that they are color changing, so they do shift based on temperature, which I think is awesome and something you don't see a lot. So if you're interested, definitely go check out her website. I love supporting other small creators, small businesses, and she's just the absolute sweetest. Anyway, here I'm just adding some depth to those 3D sculpted items by painting them with my MPA art palette. Now, if you're looking into getting the art palette, one thing I will note is that they aren't quite as opaque as some other painting gels. They are a little bit more on the transparent side. They do still have nice color payoff, but I personally like that they're a little bit more transparent because they blend super well for realism style painting. So if you're interested in doing more realism style, I would say go for the MPA art palette, but if you want more of like a cartoonish look where the colors are really solid, I would opt maybe for a different palette. But I clear all of those details, and now we're going to use some nail molds. So I'm going to just show you how to use these with clay. You can use other nail products, and eventually I'll do a video on molds, but I had the clay out, it was easy enough to do, so I just take a little bit of it and press it into the silicone mold, making sure that I have enough to completely fill it. Always make sure to check for gaps. I do really like the silicone molds that are super clear because you can see the back, and make sure that you have no air bubbles or anything like that. Once I fully cure that little charm, I did pull it out and round out the backside because I wanted this one to go on the thumb, and it was a pretty large charm. I didn't want those little sea star legs to be sticking out and snagging on things. So I just took my Melody Susie drill, rounded out the back, and then glued it on to our thumbnail. Now it's nice and curved and it sits more flush on the nail this way. For attaching it, I'm using the IV Fix Gel in the tube, and I'm just applying that straight to the back of the charm before affixing it to the nail. This stuff is really thick, so it does give you time to work with the charm and make sure you place it right where you want it before flash curing. I'm just using my pin cure lamp to flash cure into place, although always remember to go back and give it a full cure under your larger nail lamp. I thought I also wanted a sea star on the gingham pattern nail, the one with like the checked look. So I put the clay in the mold, took away the excess, and I found that I could actually kind of like curve the mold onto the surface of the nail itself, flash cure it, and attach the charm all in one go. Of course, after figuring that out, I also figured out that I didn't really like the sea star and that I wanted a different shell. So I went ahead and removed that, molded 2 different types of shells, finally decided on one, and applied that to the nail. Now with this clay, I found that the easiest way to clean up the excess around the mold is actually to just take a lint-free wipe with some alcohol and wipe it away. It works perfectly fine that way. So I cured the shell, glued it on, and then went in with one more sea star on the middle finger. I wanted another 3D accent somewhere in the set. I wanted another sea star. So again, I'm taking that silicone mold and kind of folding it over the nail itself, flash curing it in place before giving it a full cure. And then I decided I wanted to bring in a blue element, so I'm just taking that sponge that we used to ombre earlier and just adding a little hint of blue to the surface of the sea star. And now it's time to attach the rest of our charms. I just pulled out a couple like gold accents, maybe some little pearls and bubbles that I thought would be fitting for the design, along with some bows as well to fit that kind of like coquette theme. Starting with the thumbnail, I'm just adding a couple little gold shells and some pearls as accents. If anyone has recently purchased the IV Fix Gel and can let me know if their tube leaks, I'd love to know. My tube kind of leaks a little bit in the cap. It is an older version. I know they've updated it since then. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear from you. Anyway, for the middle finger, I'm using the shell that I ended up not using on the other finger, and I'm just creating like a little line of charms across the surface of the nail, almost like what you would see at the beach when the waves wash all the shells to shore. And then for the other pinky finger, I'm going in with just a single bow. I just wanted to add another element of that like cute coquette look, just to tie things together. Same as with the other pinky finger, this time using a blue bow. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure I achieved exactly what I wanted with tying together those 2 very different designs, or different styles, I should say. I tried to make sure that each nail had one piece, one element from each motif, the like cutesy lemon style and the ocean style, but I don't know. I kind of hated the design when I first finished it. It grew on me as I wore the nails, but you let me know. How would you have better tied together the two elements, the two different styles? I would love to have your feedback. Anyway, we are on to the finishing touches. I just wanted to add a little bit of shading for some realism on the surface of the starfish and the shells. So I just went in with that tan color from the palette just to add a little bit of depth. And then after adding that, I decided this nail was looking a little bit plain. So I actually went in with the marbly ink, and this is me filming off camera because I was really tired at this point, not paying attention. Anyway, I just added a little bit of the ink to look like sea foam, to look like waves, and then making sure all of the shells get the same shading treatment. I'm adding detail to the ring finger. And now it's finally time for top coat. So I did reach for my Yogo Zombie top. It is really nice and thick, which I wanted because I had a lot of charms attached to this nail, and I just wanted to round out all of the edges, make sure that nothing would snag on anything. I find the Yogo Zombie gel is perfect for this because of its consistency. And I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on in the background. I don't know if you can hear the banging, but it's like 1 a.m. here, and for some reason there's a bunch of like clanging coming from the hallway, from the stairwell. So hopefully my phone isn't picking that up. I am using my phone to record the audio right now because unfortunately I did not have any other means with me on vacation. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. But onto the last step, bringing out my trusty crazy top thick, and I'm using a liner brush to just add that shell texture. You want to start by getting a good dollop on the end of the brush and then sort of like concentrate most of that towards the free edge, dragging the excess back towards the point where you want all of those ridges to meet, and then flash curing between each one. If you kind of like start your bead past the edge of the nail, if that makes any sense, that's how you can get a lot of that product concentrated more towards the edge and get those really nice juicy lines. I do the same thing for the lemon, filling in those individual segments. You do just want to make sure that you are flash curing in between, so those segments, since they're so close together, don't kind of like flow into each other. We really want good definition here. And I'm trying to make the segments different sizes, so some of them are going to be really thick while some are a little bit thinner. And all we have left is to do our last shell. Again, same method, trying to concentrate most of that gel towards the edge, dragging the extra back where they'll meet together in the center for those nice juicy looking ridges. I don't really know what other word to use. Plump, I guess, although I don't know if that's even better. I'm tired, guys. It's like 1 a.m. I need to go to bed. And on that note, after giving these one final full cure in the nail lamp, these are finally finished. Overall, I did really end up growing to like this set. Like I said at the beginning, I wasn't quite sure how well I melded together both of the different styles, but you let me know in the comments, what would you have done differently? How would you have fit together these two kind of like different styles? I do think they're good for my creative growth. Again, big thank you to everybody who is watching, who didn't mind me taking a little bit of a hiatus there to travel. I do really appreciate this community. Everybody is just so nice. You know, I'm just feeling very blessed right now in life to be traveling, to be doing something that I'm passionate about, and to have a lovely community to share it with. So if you're interested, I do have a Discord where we just chat all things nails. That will be linked in the description below, along with everything that I used for this tutorial. Otherwise, thank you again for being here. I hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!